Also, I'm surprised you now.
This is bonus
All right.
episode, bonus material.
Yeah. So basically, I wanna know, right? You have worked at 2 different universities, actually 3. It's a 3, isn't it?
So there's Lebone, UJ,
Yeah.
and the one that is in Abu Dhabi.
Abu
It's
Dhabi.
important to try and distinguish that Lebanon was a college, and then the 2 universities, the one in Abu Dhabi and the University of Johannesburg.
Yeah.
But
And for
essentially, they all
SMU
deliver.
as well for
SMU.
SMU as well, we
Yeah.
were involved.
Yes,
with that as
Sefako
well.
Makato.
Yeah, Sefako
Yeah, that's a
Makato.
word I wanted you to say a little bit slowly, Tulani. I'm Malusi, but then you just ran through it. And I was like, I'm
Sefako
sure.
Makato.
I'm sure I will slow it down on the recording.
I worked at Lebone for how long, and we had that partnership with SMU, and I always struggled to say the name of the university.
And Malusi is just cruising through it like this.
It's great.
It's 2025, Nathan. You can try again. I promise we won't laugh.
Mm.
Sefako Makato.
I got it.
It's good.
Almost there. Almost there.
All right. So I mean, I have my own opinion on it. Malusi has his own opinion on it. So does Tulani. And the one thing that we want to discuss is physical fitness within the education system. And having worked at those different institutions, what are your thoughts on it?
In terms of for a paramedic, or in terms of just in general?
For a paramedic, yeah,
paramedic.
for a paramedic, as a paramedic, do you think it should be part of the curriculum? Do you think it's a must, or do you think it should be optional? Or what are your thoughts on physical fitness as being part of the paramedic training?
Yeah, look, I mean, we operate in a physical environment, so we have to have the ability to pick up the stricture, and we need to have the ability to move patients around. If the patient's on the top floor of a building, we need to be able to move them down somewhere. And we know that the environment, especially in South Africa, the lifts don't always work, or you have to do that. So I think it's really important. I mean, I'm also someone that is just enjoys the physical aspect and enjoys keeping myself fit, and have seen so much benefit from that in terms of my career and outside of your life that you get. So does it need to be a physical requirement, a prerequisite? And in terms of pass fail, we can have a debate with that. I think that is a little bit more of the gray area. But is it a good idea for paramedics to have to be able to physically do the job? Absolutely. And then how do we get there, other than making it a requirement at university, or making it a requirement after university that you have to do a physical assessment every year, or you have to do something like that? How do you enforce it if it's not a requirement? That I don't know how you do unless you actually put something in place.
Yeah, I think second question following up to this, I'm sure I can see Malusi ready to attack. And he's coming a few more questions. That's why I asked this question. All right. Subsequent to that, yeah, I know. Subsequent to that, do you think it's fair for someone not to be allowed into a course because they cannot run a specific distance, or they can't swim a specific distance, or they can't lift a specific weight with a stretcher, or whatever the case might be? This is just your opinion. This is your thoughts.
Is it unfair for them to be?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's unfair. No, because that is part of the requirements of what the person is going to have to do when they finish. If you accept that there's a physical component that the person is going to have to fulfill after their graduation, how can you allow them into the course and allow them to go throughout the whole course and not be able to do the physical components towards the end? And just from my experience at UJ, because I mean, I was involved there, and Tulani will have a much better idea of this, but the students that came in that were unfit, you could kind of get them going, but by the time they left, they were also unfit by the time they finished. So it's very difficult to take someone that doesn't focus on it to try and focus on it. You know what I mean? And try and
Okay.
get them there.
Fair enough.
You know, that is difficult for university to do. So as part of the entrance requirements, yeah. But the other thing is, how much of the entrance requirement is it? How much is it taken into account? And I think that's where we can go from an academic standpoint, because you do the interview, you have your academic record, you have the physical assessment, you have the interview, you have some other requirements that you have. You might have to write a letter or something like that to motivate you getting into the course. How much of those are you taking into account? Is it 90% academic, 10% or 5% interview, 1% physical, or is it more, you know, how do you weight those
Difficult one.
entrants? Yeah. That I think is also, I know where there's a bit of
All right.
nuances.
Before you attack, guys, I know you have questions. This is a very sensitive topic that we have run through before.
Let's
Right.
go. Now we're going to debate time.
Last but not least, do you think the paramedicine program can be taught fully online or not?
No, and I don't think any medical course can be taught fully online. The reason is that there's a practical component, and you're going to have to demonstrate competency in those practical components. So if you think that you can just completely run a fully online course, that can't happen. Not at undergrad level. What could happen is a more hybrid approach that universities will probably move to in time, where there'll be online components, online lectures, and an integration with the practical. So the students might only come in for practical assessments, or might only come in for practical, components of their course. But in terms of a medical course being completely online, like you'd have an accounting course, or you could have a business management course or something like that can't happen. That can't happen. The ratio of how much is online, how much is on campus, and how much is online can change, and we can debate about that. But in terms of completely being online, I don't think it will ever happen.
Thank you for the insight. All right, guys, you can have the questions.
Before I forget this point, is that, during COVID, and we were doing this hybrid system where the theory was being done online and the practicals was done on campus. And this is a true story, that I had a student that obviously the lectures were running online. I was presenting something, and I don't remember the exact thing that happened, but the student turned on their camera, and she was lying in bed with the boyfriend. I'm like,
we are both studying. We are both studying.
What?
I think biology.
Yeah.
So is that inferior vena cover?
So
it goes to the tummy. Where is it? Do you want to feel it?
Just to backtrack,
But you have a big tummy. I can't press too hard.
So I think those were the challenges of having a hybrid system, is that students were not taking it as important, like physical, in-person learning, but also, and this is me, I woke up, showered, prepared for lectures, set up everything, and I was teaching. Whereas the students, I don't know if they showered or they prepared, but they come in. So,
but showering is not a pre-requirement, Chief.
But if you're going to class every day, you're going to wake up, shower, and prepare for class.
Yeah.
Isn't that so?
It's
I don't
not a
think
pre-requirement still.
So I don't think they took it.
Malusi sounds like the student that is in bed watching the lectures.
I think so too. But now I've got my gloves on, Elias. You're very sneaky.
Go for it.
You're very
Guys.
sneaky. Because you knew what you wanted to ask. But I think, I share the same sentiments with Nathan, and not because we come from the University of Johannesburg, is that having been with the experience that I have and having taught, is that simple tasks like lifting a stretcher, if you're medically unfit, you're gonna battle. And our job, not just, it's physically demanding. So you need to have some level of fitness into that. But also when you're doing chest compressions, if you're not fit, you need to be physically fit. And I've lost my trail of thought. But what I want to say is that I think in the EMS, and this is my point that I want to make, is that there's been a narrative that has been pushed to say someone was not allowed to finish the program just because they didn't, for example, lift the stretcher. And that's something that we need to run away from, is that there's certain things that standards have been set and people need to tick. And if you're not ticking that box, then you're at a risk. So that's the thing that I wanted to say, is that physical fitness should be part of component for the EMC programs. And also people need to be healthy. It forces us, because once people graduate, they gain weight, they live a sedentary lifestyle, they don't eat healthy, they don't maintain that. And I was also part of that. I finished university and I gained a lot of weight. So I think it should be a component, and the standards needs to be there, because without standards, where do you gauge that part?
I like it. Yes,
No,
Nathan.
what you're saying, Tulani, just going back, I mean, the physical components, I think we're definitely on the same wavelength with that. But going back to the COVID times, and we went through this whole experience as academia and as actually through the world. We moved everything online, and then we've actually done the experiment. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Our students didn't learn like they should. So I want to see academic programs, now that we've had this massive experience of moving completely online. I mean, I was at the university. I worked in South Africa for 6 months before I moved to the UAE. So I had this experience where I was completely online. All my students were online. No practical components, because they wouldn't allow us to do that. So we've done the experiment. It didn't work. What I want to see in the future is maybe you might have some students that want to experience it online and some students that want to come into class. And we allow the students, we set up the lecture, we come in, we allow the students to, if they want to stay at home, they stay at home and they get the recording, they listen to the recording, or if they want to be in class, they want to be in class and they want to come in and learn that way. And we allow them to learn that for themselves, rather than trying to say, okay, guys, we're moving everyone into the classroom, or we're moving everyone online. And, why can't we just cater to what the students needs, more than, trying to force everyone into a specific way of doing things. And, also like from your study, I mean, students study differently. So some of the students study well in class, some of the students study well while they're sitting by themselves learning. We should try and cater to those kind of things. So that's where I think education's probably going.
Interesting. So I have two topics to discuss now. We'll start with the online. Yeah, I think that firstly, I think in Australia there is a university degree they can do online. I'm not sure how much online is it, but I know that there are people that have studied it online and they've completed it. I'm not sure how much face-to-face sessions they've had, but I definitely know there is. I think maybe we should organize as a podcast to get a person that has done it online and they explain it to us, and they tell us their experience and the challenges that they've experienced integrating to the world of working. I do think there is that, and also I think on the physical fitness part, there is something. Do you guys use a striker?
Stretch.
Stretcher? Yeah.
Not us.
Yeah, we use a striker stretcher. It lifts up to, I think, 130 kg. You press a button. Yeah, press a button. Zzz, up. You don't need to lift it.
Actually,
Okay.
actually, that's what you use. It's a strike. Yeah, it's a striker. That's what we use. I think
Yeah,
that's
so
what Qatar uses as well, isn't it, Malusi? Atlani.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
they use.
yeah. But having said that, I know there is a bit of lifting that you have to do now and then, but manual handling, they call it here, manual handling, because you have to protect your back and ensure that you don't injure yourself while you're doing it. You need to do it because we sometimes suffer because of prolonged lifting and all those things. Sometimes we suffer our backs, we hurt ourselves, and we have those musculoskeletal injuries. So we have to protect ourselves. In which you're right. I think those that support the idea of physical fitness in the job, it's very important that you do that. Having said that, let me go back to my background. I started training for assessments to be accepted at uni after matric. I wasn't into sport. I remember in high school, the day I wore shorts for soccer, the whole school laughed because they wouldn't believe that Malusi, is actually. I used to be one of the snobby ones that are arguing. I used to wear glasses, not arguing as in debating society, English society, those kind of formal things. But then, as I finished year 12, I started, okay, now I saw that there's a comment. I need to do push-ups, 30 push-ups in 1 minute. I need to run 2.3 kilometers in
Whatever time frame.
12 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I need to do sit-ups too, 30 sit-ups in a minute, you know. So I had to prepare for that. That's when I started. Then I entered uni. I had to maintain that. Lucky, I've never been large. I've always been lean. I was thinking,
You're on the other side of the spectrum. Of the other end.
I think I was size 28 most of the time, you know. So
Okay.
it was easy to maintain that. Yeah, I used to. I actually, this is when I realized I can actually run. You know, can run with the fast person sometimes in the front when we're training. You know, so I got to start learning it. So it's life skills, and then I also learned so hiking too. That's where I got to love hiking. I fell in love. Could prepare myself. I can survive in the wilderness. Can prepare a tent. I never knew that lifestyle before university. What else? So and then luckily in DUT we didn't do swimming. I had to do swimming afterwards. After when I qualified, because we had a lot of cases. I was working in Port Elizabeth. There was this case where there was a helicopter and there was a big shipping vessel, and we were like 300 kilometers deep in the ocean, and I had to be winched to this vessel. So the helicopter was hovering around, and then I had to be winched to the vessel. And I thought to myself, if anything happens, I end up in the water, what's going to happen to me? Because I can't swim at that time. And then I had to learn to swim. So fact of the matter is, you do need some level of physical fitness to be on the job. I think Nathan said that. And the level of fitness that you have to have is important. It's just that we don't know how much. But I don't think that we need to train like we're going to the military. I think there needs to be a measure in how much fit you need to be in order to be accepted in the course. Because actually, if you think about it, South Africa are the only ones that actually have that component, that have a degree that offers dual rescue. And not South Africa, Africa. I think you too, Elias. Yeah, I'm not sure if in Kenya they do the same, but it's only.
I think in Botswana they do the same.
We can say sub-Saharan Africa, and it all comes from South Africa, and then it moves to Botswana and Namibia. But in Australia, there is no one who does that.
Both, yeah.
Yeah. In the UK, no one who does that. Then you ask yourself why. But having said that, there is also an assessment that you do before you are employed. Your grip strength, your lifting strength, and your cardiovascular system. Sometimes they do a VO2 and all those things. So there is room for it, but I think not as intense. I think Nathan said it. There needs to be some level of weighing it, like how much how much do you give to it? Does it mean that if you can't run 2.3 kilometers in 12 minutes when you are 18 years, then you're out? Yeah. What does that mean? I think those things need to be weighed properly, and they need to have meaning in the whole thing.
So I missed some of the conversation, but I think what I would say to that is, what is as a university or as a training institution, what are you doing to prepare your students for what the role that they're going to fulfill? And I
The
think
market,
that is exactly, how are you preparing them? And you can go back and debate different ways of doing that. But if there's a physical component, your university should have the responsibility to enforce that, or to have that as part of their training, as part of the education. So that's where I would say. And I mean, we can talk about physical fitness in terms of entrance to the university, and a requirement for the course, and then a requirement for work. And I don't know another way than forcing someone to actually do a physical assessment to enforce that throughout, from start to finish.
One thing I like that I've noted with both Tulani and Nathan. Tulani said there's a certain standard that has been set, and then you must follow it. And then Nathan said you have to enforce it. There's a level of militance that I'm setting in this. So, I'm listening to this word. There's a level of militance that these people are applying, that this thing has to be done.
Maybe
But
it came
as
out
people
wrong.
that are into science, as a scientist, let us be scientific about this, right? If other universities in the world, Europe and
Australasian.
Australasia, they're not what? Then they do have paramedics too, and their paramedics are also efficient, and they can do their job, and they get employed. What are they doing in terms of that? We need to ask those questions. We are comparing now. One, if there is a specific standard in South Africa, how much of that fitness has to be fitness? Like how fit do you need to be? Does it need to be the same as the standard that is done by the military when you need to be accepted? What are we achieving? What are we achieving by that? Are we
For the fire brigade.
So I think, Melusi, you asked me a valid question, and it would be, and I'm not trying to sell someone out, but if you miss, Dr. Malbauer, now, she used to be Miss Malbauer, but Dr. Malbauer, she did her PhD thesis on validating a tool to task that is used for assessing for assessing oriented physical preparedness. I can't remember the full title, but also part of her research thesis that she did a scoping review that looks at a unique requirement for physical preparedness. And I think this discussion warrants more even discussions to look at that stuff, because I'm sure in her validated tool that she came up with a conclusion, or what is the minimum standards that is required. And I think we should have in the next discussion, we should include that part. And
it would
be nice to have someone that did that research on that. I mean, to hear from her perspective.
Yeah. Well, she's a person that I highly respect too. It would be great to have her. But having said that, there's a component that I forgot to mention, that also in South Africa or in the sub-Saharan Africa, what they do is they do rescue, and then they do the patient management. And because of rescue, then it means that then you have to include the physical component, and it has to be intense. But then it brings to the question, do you really have to do this rescue? How many times?
Use it?
Exactly. How many times have you lifted out a spreader and used it? Or there are people that are using it. How many times have you set up a high angle?
I think it's important to appreciate what you're saying, but also when you look at the aspect is that when coming from the backgrounds that I'm in now and from South Africa, is that in South Africa you were getting exposed to light motor vehicle accidents when you go to scenes. Your knowledge that you did at the uni, it assisted you to function in that as a team. Whereas if you don't do it at all, you don't have any prior knowledge, you don't know how is the patient going to be extricated, you don't know how the vehicle is going to be cut, you don't know about the safety components working around the light motor vehicle risk. And then also, let's say, for example, you did high angle rescue, it prepares you for the fear of heights when you do those patients that you have to either move from mountain rescue, for example. It prepares you emotionally and psychologically and also physically that you'll be able to function as a team in those components. Yes, you might not use it on a daily basis, but it prepares you. And also for future career progression. And I think that's one of the reasons why South African paramedics are being accepted elsewhere. We're seen as the best, mainly because of the
Everywhere.
stuff that we've done.
He says the best.
Well, in most of the places, I'm not, but in most
Says the
places, we are
best.
regarded as the best. You know,
Oh, yeah,
like they
the
want to
best.
hire the South African paramedics because we can function in everywhere. Like, for example, where I'm currently am, you get to work in helicopters. I was exposed to helicopters in South Africa as one of the rescues that we did. In Abu Dhabi, we've got South African paramedics. I'm not sure what's the staff complement there, but they're able to function in rescue operations that they do. So the program itself, even though you might not use it today, but for future, it prepares you for future employment because you've been exposed, you're able to function. Yes, they can train you, but you already have those basics, and those basics is what the program is providing.
Can I say something, or someone wants to talk first?
I didn't mean this to turn into another podcast. It was meant to get Nathan's views on these two subjects. But yeah, Malusi, you can, and then I think by 7:30, because you're at 27, 7:30 we close up, and then we allow Nathan to leave. Thank you. You know, he has dedicated his time to our podcast. Yeah, but Malusi, you go ahead.
These are our normal conversations, Nathan.
I like that. I like the debate. I love it. This is the part that I like.
Yeah, this is what we do most of the time. So, if you look, I think learning to extrication, cutting cars and stuff like that, I think that's a valuable a skill. I also do appreciate that there was no extrication 1, 2, and 3. There's only one extrication. Yeah, so you only learn it once and then you're done. Yeah. Yeah, I remember. It was a long time ago, but I do remember that. And I appreciate it.
In the brain.
But also, think about it. If it ever happens that there is a high angle situation and you decide as an ECP, I'm not going there, no one is going to shout at you. But at the same time, and your employer is not going to have issues with you, especially if you're employed by the state or the government or even the private sector, as long as you're not working in the Kwacha for Netcare, you know, because in the Kwacha, that's what you do. I'm not sure what do they call the ER24 one. But my point in this is it does help to understand what's happening in the system, but then we don't need to also go very intense in it. I think there should, personally what I think there should be an option to say, this is my elective and this is what I want to do. ECP as registration by HPCSA has no rescue in it. And you can function happily in the industry. As a clinician, that is just an ECP that doesn't have rescue. And you can register with HPCSA. Technically, it's on the standard that they produce. They send it to the universities. That's what I think. Yeah, I agree with you. There is greater opportunities for other job opportunities elsewhere in the world, or even in South Africa. We have a lot of mine rescues that are happening there. You know, we can specialize in that. You can focus in that. You can work in the Kwacha. You know, you enjoy the Kwacha. You can be educator.
What is Kwacha? Sorry.
So Kwacha is this SUV. What do you call it? A ute that has rescue equipment, and you respond in accidents if rescue systems are far. You'll be the
Why is
first
it
one.
called the kwacha? Why is it
Private
called the
private
kwacha?
service.
It's for private service. It's just a funky South African name. Like
Oh.
I think it comes from it's an Afrikaner name, like a tough boy or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure Afrikaans people are laughing at me now. But I know that there's a Kwacha who plays rugby. What did you say?
Yeah, that's the only one that I know. Yeah.
It's an extinct horse. Like it's like a horse between a horse and a zebra, a quagga. It's a half zebra at the back and then a horse at the front.
You see?
But it's extinct now. Yeah.
Oh, extinct.
More
That's
like
what
a
quagga
meal, but
is.
not,
That is what a
but
quagga
not really a
is.
meal.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it existed. It was called a Kwacha.
Yeah, it is. It was.
Never
Have
heard
a
of
look
that.
at it, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's interesting. All right.
That's me.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your opinions. Thank you for your input. I really appreciate it. I think when you work in different parts of the world, you really actually get to understand this much better and in depth. You get to see how other systems run. You get to understand the education systems in different places. And you get to appreciate your system for what it is and the experiences that it gives you and the kind of bonds that you form with your colleagues while you're doing this exercises like rescue, studying together and how intense the course is as compared to other systems. Some people they are practical online. They probably only meet 5 times a year for their practical sessions, and they don't even do placements. Like I remember I had to do placements at maternity. I had to do them in a cardiac ward. I had to do them at different NICU and ICU and all this.
I had to catch 10 babies.
Exactly. Some people are not fortunate enough to do this. And I think, us sharing this experience and our thoughts on this, I think it will shape the EMS system moving forward. And from my perspective, I don't think you need to be physically fit, but I think you need to be mentally fit to treat a patient. But I don't think you need to be physically fit. But that's my take on it. Don't attack it, guys.
Says an avid soccer player in New Zealand.
Well, yeah, I wish I could, and I'm sure my colleague will not mind me sharing this, but we are on 2 different ends of the spectrum, and he calls me the small man, and he calls himself the big boy.
I've seen on Instagram. What's funny is this? We can argue like this. I cycle and I run. I actually have a race on Sunday. And Tulani is doing the same, triathlonist and a soccer player here. We're all into sports. Yet you talk like this. We can disagree, but we need to think of other people that are small people and big people, We have to accommodate. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Nathan, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate you joining the podcast. Hopefully we can have you soon again when you become a millionaire. Just know that you contributed to the success. But yeah, we honestly appreciate it, and we wish you the best for the business and the career, and hopefully you can catch up soon again.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And thanks for all the work that you're doing out. This podcast and these kind of things that you're doing is great. And it takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of time, but it's really
and a lot of tech knowledge.
Yeah.
A lot of tech knowledge as well.
But it's exactly like what I was saying. You coming up with all these things and you're just taking it step by step, and every step that you take, you grow and you get better. So I really hope the best for you guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys as famous podcasters.
I don't want to be famous.
We want to save the industry, though. We want to save the industry.
That's all we want.
Yeah.
Fame is not what we want. Yeah.
You have to be famous to shape the industry. No one's going to listen to you if you don't want to listen to you. Yeah.
True. If you have 12 followers, who's gonna
Yes,
listen
who's
to
going to listen to you?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. I really
Cheers, guys.
appreciate the time.
Thank you.
In the recording now.